Imagine this. It's 2022. You want to take digital art seriously, so you get yourself a tablet. Then you download the freest app you can find. And at first you're like, wow, how hard can this be? But after 4 hours, the weight of the situation sets in, and ladies and gentlemen, you realize it is in fact very, very hard. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel, and for today's video we're going to be redrawing some of my old art back when I first got like Ibis Paint, Medibang, all them, and even back when I was drawing art on my younger sister's tablet, so shout out to her. And yeah, I just was like, I really want to see how much I improved in a year, so let's get into the video. So I'm starting off pretty easy. It's going to be this sketch that I did about 2 years ago. I thought it was actually no, this one might be from a year ago, I can't remember, but I really wanted to redraw this sketch because back at the time that I did it, I thought it was actually really good, but then when I did this one, I realized how much I actually ended up improving. So when it came to the start of this sketch, I did it the same way that I start everything, which is basically with drawing the silhouette, because I find that that's the easiest way to grasp the shape of whatever you're drawing. Now I usually go in with like the airbrush pencil, but one of my followers actually sent me the code for this pencil, so I mean, you know who you are, and that's the one that I'm using for this one. Now I think this sketch ended up taking me about 1 hour in full once I finally finished it, but honestly, if I had to describe what I was doing, I'm just pretty much going over all of my base sketches now. When redrawing this, I really just wanted to have my line work look more finished, because though this is still a sketch like the original was, I definitely felt like the original was just kind of half done. It just didn't really look like I put much effort into it. So that's what I definitely wanted to change with this redrawing. Also, the first one doesn't really look like me, but this one I think really looks a lot like me while also keeping a really nice style to it. I think out of everything, the glasses took me the longest because I had to keep readjusting them, because glasses are just weird to me. Like, they can kind of throw off the whole thing, and they just kind of sit on the face weird, and if you don't get the glasses right, then it kind of throws off all of the angles. So this is just footage of me going over everything and just fixing the glasses and the shape of the eyes, because I realized that I had messed the angles up a bit, but I honestly ended up fixing it by the end. Also, my like hatch work I was working on as well, kind of how I want to say the author of My Hero does a lot of his sketch work, or even like, what is his name, Yusuke Murata, I think, the guy who illustrates for One Punch Man. So they're a lot of my inspirations when it comes to the shading for my line art. Now when it came to like finishing this, I just added like a bunch of little sketches, and I also added this like little like squid thingy. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like a Dumbo squid or something I added, because I just thought they were like really cute, and I've been like obsessed with them lately, so I was like, oh, I should really like add this into there, and then I ended up finishing it. Now by itself, I really love the way it turned out, but I think it really shines when I put it next to the drawing from like a couple of years ago, because you can just definitely see how much better I got in terms of like my skill level. I also ended up making this like mini animatic thing too, so yeah. Now we're getting into like the real star of the show, pretty much the main reason why I wanted to do a redraw in the first place. And if you can see, I used the old sketch in order to start this new one, because I loved the way it looked. It just needed a little bit of improvement, and pretty much all I did was fix the anatomy up, and it was like the hand needed to be a bit further up to the face, and then I just made the features on the actual face a bit bigger. But other than that, I kept it all relatively the same. And I made the head bigger, obviously, but I pretty much kept it all the same other than that, because I just kind of liked the way that it looked originally. Now when adding on the clothes, I tried to keep it a bit more free looking. I feel like before it looked kind of rigid and like fluffy, but not in the way that I personally thought looked good. So I kind of made them a bit more form-fitting to her body, and then made the other parts a bit baggier, like around the legs and around the shoulders and stuff like that, to really show that it's like a loose garment falling off of her body. Now, one of the main things that I wanted to improve when it came to this drawing was the color of it. If you'll notice in the old one, it's really like dry. I don't even know how to explain it. I want to say it's like washed out. That's what it is. The old one's like really washed out in comparison to this new one that I did. I think it's more juicy, has a bit more contrast, and it kind of just hits you, versus the other one without all the filters that I added is just like very dull. And that was something and that's just honestly something I've been working on in general as an artist, is just my colors and my hue and my values. So I'm happy that by the end of it, this one in terms of color definitely is just different. I think I made the shoes a bit smaller as well, and I ended up shading them a bit differently. I felt like in the original one, everything just looked kind of like a doll, like if you were to place clothing on a doll, which is fine, but I just think I definitely wanted to change that for this version. Now, when it came to choosing the colors, I used all of the original colors as bases, just because I thought they were fine. They just needed to be like a bit more vibrant. So I just kind of used the eyedropper tool, color picked it, and then just got a more vibrant version of the original color. Now, when it came to her skin, I noticed that in the original, it just looked kind of like milky, and I wanted it to be a bit more tan, so I changed that a lot, and I just added a bit more red and yellow in the color instead of having it more blue like the original was. Also, with this glowing effect, I know that's probably going to be, you know, people are going to ask questions about that. I really just added an overlay layer with this like almost turquoisey neon blue that you see that's on her apron. If you add that type of color on an overlay layer, it'll make it look like it's glowing, and that's pretty much how I did the effect. It's actually super easy, but I think it bumps up the art in its own little way. Now, this is like the second major thing that I wanted to work on, was my clothing. Man, whenever I be rendering clothing, it just looks insane. Like, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But that was like my second main focus when it came to this drawing. So I started the same way that I started the old one. No, I didn't start the old one like this. But what I have been doing is adding this gradient effect, kind of the same way that I render hair. And I do a gradient from, I want to say, the middle shade to the darkest shade. And then I go in with either the darkest shade or the lightest shade and drag that into the other shade. So for example, with this actual piece with these pants, I used the middle shade color and dragged it into the darkest shade color, but you can honestly do it the opposite way. It's really just preference. I always prefer to go from light to dark, so I just go that way. And if you'll notice in the original, it kind of just looks like a flat color that I then laid color just kind of on top of with no real gradient. And then I went over with a lighter color that's like barely lighter, so the values are just terrible. And I did the same thing with the apron as well. I was kind of struggling with like wanting to either do a super strong gradient or maybe just a lighter gradient. But then again, I was like, I don't think I really understood where the light source was coming from. So that's definitely an improvement I will work on for my next like redraw. I kind of just guessed where the lighting was coming from, because like obviously her hat is glowing and that was one of the main light sources, but obviously there's going to be another pinpoint of light. And I think I kind of just made it up, so that's why I was a bit struggling when it came to the gradient. But honestly, I think it ended up working. But don't be like me, like maybe have an example of what you're looking for. I didn't have any references. And that was one of the main reasons why I think this was so hard for me to draw originally, because I had no references. I was just making this up like in my mind. So when it came down to it, I was just adding light anywhere. Like literally, I think it's just wrong. Like if you look at the original versus the one that I redid, the light sources are just coming from every which way, and I'm like, yeah, I think I definitely improved this time, but I know where I can bump it up next time. And then for the boots as well, I had like no reference, so I kept it kind of simple. I was like, maybe the lighting's just kind of hitting the boots from the front, but I still wanted them to look a bit 3D, so I tried to keep that in mind when rendering them. And honestly, I did like a pretty good job. Yeah, I probably should draw more shoes in the future, but for now, I like the way this looked. I ended up fixing that too, because the way I did it like originally, I think the light was coming from the middle, but I'm like, nah, I think I'll make both sides the dark side of the shoe and then have the light side coming from like the same side as well, just to have a bit of like continuity that I lacked in the first one. And I also really like texture, so as you can see as I'm finishing up this piece, I'm just adding like little light pieces of texture everywhere. And I did that around the entire piece. I was just referencing a lot of different artists that I follow on Instagram, because like texture is another thing that I notice immediately when it comes to art. Now, when it comes to like rendering hair, I know I'm like jumping around a lot, but that's literally how I draw. I don't really draw the same things for like a long time, because I feel like if I work on it too long, I don't really know what needs to be done better. So I'll like hop around. But yeah, when it comes to doing the hair, I don't think I've improved much in terms of hair. I did it pretty much the same way that I did the last one. I added the darkest color away from the light and then the lightest color near the light. Now, I obviously could have maybe done a bit more like detail, but I don't think it looks too bad. Like, I've been like rendering locks like this for a while and just curly hair for a while, and I think I just ended up liking how this looks, so I just kept it. Now, the third major thing I wanted to work on is skin. I'm still struggling to render like full bodies, but I'm working on it obviously, and that's what matters. But I did add like a strong blush. I probably could have made it a bit more red, but I ended up not doing that. But I just added a strong blush around like the knees and then the hands, pretty much following the reference on the left. And I just added this red blush color around the entire body. Then I went in again with like a darker version of the skin, kind of making it a bit more blue to represent the shadow. And I did that like around the knees, kind of like where I thought the shorts would create like a shadow effect. And then I also did that around the arms and the neck and the face. And I want to say I ended up going back over all of these again to kind of push the shadows even more. A little tip is like definitely closing out your art and coming back later so you can kind of see what I guess necessarily doesn't need to be fixed, but what you can improve on it. Because I find that if you're sitting down working on something for a long time, you don't really know like if it's bad or not. Like, not bad, but you just don't really know what you're looking at after a while. At least I don't. That's how I am. After a while, I'm like, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? I don't really know. It's been like 4 hours. So I kind of just step away, stand up, go for a little walk, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, okay, now I see what I can do. Now I see what I can fix. So that's what I pretty much did with this piece. I think it took me about, I want to say 2 days. If I had to add up all the time, I don't know what Ibis Paint says, maybe like 20 hours, but that just doesn't, that seems like a way too long. But I think I worked on it for a couple of days, and then I ended up liking how it looked after like the end of the second day, so I kind of kept it at that. So I was referencing another one of my favorite artists. I think I've mentioned her like twice already, but Minameko Molly, I want to say her name is. I just like the way she renders like bodies. It's really readable, so she's one of the people that I reference a lot. So she does like the heavy blushing, the dark shadows around the knees and stuff, so that's kind of what I tried to replicate here. And I don't have much explanation for this part. I kind of just was adding color. That's literally what I was doing. I was like, if I just keep adding color, maybe at a point it'll look right. And I also wanted to keep some of the shapes sharp and not blend it out, so that's what I did around like the shadowy areas. Doing this redraw is really putting me into the mindset of me a year ago, and it's so funny because I really thought that this was like the best I could do. So I'm really happy that looking back on it, I actually did improve, because for a while I just didn't think that I would ever improve, and I just honestly didn't know if I even had the gall or the skill to do so. But after like sitting back and really like kind of analyzing what needed to be fixed a whole year later, I'm really happy that I actually ended up improving and actually liking the improvement as well. So this is your sign to go out there and just do a redraw, because you honestly never know. Now, I remember at first when I finished this redraw, I was like, I don't know if it's any better. But then when I kind of put them side by side, I was like, oh yeah, like that's like 10 times better. That's leagues ahead of what I did a year ago. So I'm just really excited to see where I end up maybe a year from now, or even a few months from now, because I definitely want to do more redraws. I just kind of figure out what I want to do. And this is posted on my Instagram, so go check that out if you want to see a closer look. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for joining today's video. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I inspired you all to do your own little redraw. Even if I didn't inspire you to do your redraw, that's fine. Just thank you for being here as well. If you have any video suggestions down below, just write them down in the comments. I'm gonna try to do them all if I can. And I'm saying all like it's going to be a million of them. It's probably gonna be like 3. It's probably gonna be 1. Let's be for real. That pencil, get that pen to paper, and get grooving and get creative. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.